video, I'm going to share with you my experiences of listening to and sharing the great sounds built into this drum module. And I'm going to show you the secret that unleashes the awesome audio potential of this, the Roland Taiko-1. As you would expect, on day one, back in March 2021, I bought a set of headphones and couldn't wait to plug those directly into the drum module so that I could listen to 50 preset kits already in stereo in my headphones. What a treat. A kit comprises a drum head and a drum head and a rim and a rim, 4 active areas, and 150 voices, Taiko related voices, each of which can be allocated to the head, to the rim, to the head, to the rim, 4 voices attached directly and programmed in the module. I was listening to 50 pre-programmed kits. Maybe as a Taiko player, I can be excused for wanting to make a lot of noise. So a powered amplifier, a speaker with the 12-inch bass unit was just exactly what I wanted. And indeed, it did make a lot of sound. And I'm going to show you the connections involved so far. I've detached the drum module from the drum. It was originally attached with 4 rubber rings, 1 on each end. Those rubber rings have been in place now for a year. This drum module has been in and out of the drum many times. Never been any issue with those rubber rings. I was really very impressed. But let me show you now that the headphones plug simply into here, and the larger 1/4-inch jack from this speaker goes into a 1/4-inch socket. Both units are now attached and they can be used both at the same time. But to make it clearer to you, I'm going to turn this around and show you in close-up, in detail, the connections on this drum module. Here, on the rear of the drum module, it's clear to see where that small headphone jack fits in. And I can point out to you that the trig in number 1 socket is where a short stereo lead connects the drum head into the drum module. Further down the rear of the drum module, you would have spotted trig in number 2, where that small stereo lead connects to the drum head. And alongside it, you can see where a power transformer can be plugged in. Generally speaking, that's not what I would use. Indeed, I've removed the battery cover so that you can see the rechargeable AA batteries, 8 of which power this unit. Here, at the far end of the drum module, it's possible to see the 4 1/4-inch sockets, including the audio output socket into which we had plugged our PA speaker. If you are surprised to see my drum looking like this, then I should refer you to a previous video, the remodelling of the Taiko-1. I never intended to play the Roland Taiko-1 as supplied, a strap, a shoulder style, a style of playing that I was not particularly wanting to do at the early stages of my career. So I designed a dummy bass, a wooden bass to replace that bottom drum head, and a stand, and I made it and I used it for many hours, and I got a little bit better. We're now coming out of lockdown and we've got visitors coming, we've got neighbours, we've got friends, we've got relatives, and they very politely say, well, can you play us a piece on your drum? And yes, but the headphones not appropriate for that use. That big PA speaker, well, frankly, it got relegated from this room. It really didn't fit the room. It was loud and it could go somewhere else. For the neighbours, after a lot of research, I came up with this particular choice of speaker. It's a domestic speaker, it's a party speaker, it's sold as such. It does have to have a particular requirement. and that is an aux socket on the back, so I can put my cable in and connect it through to the drum module. This speaker had another criterion attached to it. I wanted it to be, if possible, part of the drum. Let me show you how that fits now. The Sony speaker that was here has now been incorporated into the stand of my drum. But just to complete that story, when I remodeled my original Taiko-1, I not only got this drum, I got a second drum with it as a consequence. I mentioned to you about trigger 1 and trigger 2. This drum head and this rim connected into this trigger 1. This drum head and this rim needed an extension cable only, and that will now plug directly into the drum module. And for the neighbours, it sounds a bit like this. You may have noticed that the speaker came alive at that point, and I'll show you that in a little more detail. I have turned this drum around, give you a clearer view of the speaker sitting on this dummy head and very solidly placed. It's not going to move anywhere. It's connected with a short stereo cable up into the phone socket. It comes out in stereo and the whole thing is really quite compact. I had many attempts at remodelling my Taiko-1. This is the latest version. I really do like it, well then I would, it's my design. And adding the speaker into the stand here has been really quite helpful. There's a drawback to it in that that speaker actually weighs 3.5 kilos. Adds quite a bit of weight to the drum. It does provide a very solid bass sound, and in fact the trills at the top are very good, but it's a little awkward carrying the two drums with that attached to one of them. I will explain. Back in March 2021, day one, my wife also bought a Taiko-1, and I refigured that. It was remodelled so that we had 4 drums like this. But live classes have started up again, and we were on the Taiko West course, and James throws in a little bit of extra and started to explain how to play this style of drum with the strap over the shoulder, the drum on the waist, and to walk around the hall playing the drum. And my wife immediately wanted to have a go at that for practice when we got home. Part of the remodelling exercise was to ensure that whatever we did, it was a remodelling, not a change of anything. Nothing was broken, nothing was glued together. This was convertible. So I converted her pair of drums back into this format. And of course she wanted to walk around with it. She wanted to walk out in the garden and show it off to the neighbours. It required to be portable, and so this drum now has the latest edition. You may see here, it's a speaker. It's a tiny speaker, but then this drum tends to play higher tone sounds when it's out on performance, and this speaker suited very well. Again, simply plugged in to the stereo phono socket, and it's a winner. I am going to summarise the 4 audio output devices that have worked well for me. But first, let me remind you that I'm going to show you the secret that unleashes the awesome audio potential of my Taiko-1. First, the headphones. Absolutely wonderful on day one, and for the weeks and months that followed, absolutely enjoyed listening to all of those 50 kits and playing along with anything that I wanted to do. fabulous. And in fact, I had a little dabble at attaching one of the 150 Taiko voices that I could attach to either the rims or the heads of my drums. I could build my own kit. It was a great time and I really loved the headphones. But of course, Taiko's a performance art, and there was a drawback to these particular headphones, and that was what appeared to be several miles of cable that invariably got in the way of any dramatic arm movements or body movements. At some stage or other, I would get caught up in the cable, and well, that could wreck a performance. Secondly, the PA speaker. Oh yes, a lot of sound, a lot of very good deep bass sounds, and the high notes, wonderful. Really enjoyed the sound from this, but there were some drawbacks. You have to have a power cable. It has to be plugged into a socket. It can't move very far from that particularly. And another restraint was that this 1/4" jack on the end of quite a heavy cable has got to go into your drum, which again, there's a limit to how far away these things can go. It was a limitation in both directions, and one which I lived with for a while, certainly for the while that this lived in this room, but of course, realities are it was too big for this room. And so the complications were complications. Taking it out in the garden and setting up something there, needed power in the garden. We had it, but it wasn't very convenient. So some drawbacks to this particular speaker. One of the more recent speakers that I've got, the Sony speaker here, is battery operated. That was a big advantage. It contains a rechargeable battery that they reckon might last for 12 hours. That would be really interesting. And it has got an aux input, and all I need is a small cable, and as soon as I was able to find a way of attaching it inside my drum stand, this became a real go-to speaker. It has been very, very helpful for people who are visiting. It works in this room very well. It stays attached to the drum, albeit it makes one of the drums really quite heavy. So instead of picking up a drum in each hand, now it's got a bit beyond that. So lovely, makes a really good sound, has a simple connection and fits within the drum stand. Close to being perfect, but not quite. The most recent addition to the audio devices that I'm attaching to my drum is this really tiny speaker. It's attached to that battery plate on the back of the drum module. It's just taped on. It's got a number of inputs, including one for that small stereo cable. This goes onto the back of the module, and the cable again goes into the phono socket. This has been quite a boon. It's also got a rechargeable battery. It's designed to last for several hours, and I think that is really good from a practice point of view. I wish I could manage several hours of practice at a go. And the sound is really quite good. And it made that Katsuki style drum playing possible, and to be portable walking around the community hall or taking it down the garden to show off to the neighbours. That's been really interesting. I don't have much of a complaint about that at all.